Hey, I'm Gabriele Girardi, creator of the Mindful Chef movement. I'm here to share how I got started in the restaurant industry, how I got in and eventually out, the challenges, the suffering, and the bad habits I had to face along the way. I'll be reading my story to make sure I don't miss any details. I come originally from Italy, from Tuscany, growing up in a family of humble, low to medium means. My mother came from the countryside, while my father came from the city. Two different worlds, two different ways of thinking, meeting under one roof. From a young age, I dreamt of many things. I wanted to become a doctor, an architect, then later a musician. My passion for cooking comes from my family. My grandma on my mother's side was always in the kitchen making incredible food. Her handmade pasta was unforgettable. My uncle, also from my mother's side, was one of the most important people in my life. I lost him to cancer a few years ago. He was a hunter, and I remember seeing all kinds of game on the table: wild boar, small birds, deer, pheasant, and hare. But my parents could cook. My mom made a ton of different dishes because I was picky. Every meal has to be something new. My dad was especially good with fish. I remember Christmas dinners where we had this huge table that could seat 20 people. My parents ran an antiques shop under our apartment. My father restored the pieces, but Christmas was all about cooking. They made these massive menus of fish dishes. It was insane. That's where I started to see it. I loved eating and I loved watching them cook. Later, when my parents got divorced, my mom had to find another job. A friend of a friend opened a restaurant and asked if she'd try working in the kitchen. She was already known for her food, so she gave it a shot. The restaurant became one of the most popular places for traditional Tuscan food. She learned it because she had to. No fancy training, just pure survival and skill. I was a teenager then, and after school, I sometimes helped out as a waiter. The kitchen was a furnace, 40, 50 degrees Celsius, of course, and the pizza oven made it feel like hell. That was my first real taste of restaurant life. When I finished high school, I didn't want to keep studying. I wanted to cook. A family friend, a photographer, knew some important chefs because he worked on cookbooks. He hooked me up with a Michelin star restaurant on the Italian coast for a 7 month training. I was 18. The pay was a joke, 500 euros total, not even monthly, but I didn't care. I went there to learn. The first few months, they broke me down. I was supposed to work 5 hours a day, but I stayed 13, 14, 6 days a week. I wanted to absorb everything. The sous chef was always there running things. The head chef, the owner, mostly worked the floor, entertaining the guests. This head chef told me, if you want to grow, go abroad. His sons had stayed with him, and he wished they'd gone out to explore. I listened. I shared a room with two guys from Alma, the culinary school. Privacy, forget it. We hung a towel to separate sleeping spaces, but I didn't care. I had a roof, and I was working in one of the best kitchens in Italy. Breaks were for cigarettes. That was the only time I could stop. I started smoking again just to have that moment. The first 3 months were hell. The team gave me a hard time, but I stuck with it. And after a while, they respected me. By the end, they offered me a job. I said no, I was exhausted, but I stayed in touch with them for years. It was brutal, but I learned. When I came home, the same photographer friend got me into another kitchen. That summer, a guy visiting a family friend's winery turned out to be a manager at the Michelin star restaurant in Copenhagen. My mom made the connection, and I got an interview. The chef there was building a new team. He was young, Italian, and hungry to make a name for himself. I went to Copenhagen for 2 weeks. They gave me a couch to sleep on while I worked a trial shift. When I went back to Italy, I got the call. I was in. They pay 16,000 krona a month, barely enough to live on. They gave me a room, an inflatable mattress with a hole in it. I wake up on the floor, pump it up, sleep a few more hours, then go back to work. I shared the room with another chef. Privacy was a joke. After 3 months, they got us a bed and a wardrobe to split the space. The kitchen was relentless. We had only one meal a day, usually at 4 p.m., but if we didn't align with the mise en place schedule, we would skip even that meal, resulting in a full day of fasting. Snacking was not allowed, even while working. The chef was obsessed with making a name for himself, pushing us hard. We smoked weed on weekends because cigarettes weren't allowed during shifts. I was 20, working insane hours and making every mistake possible. The communication was brutal, yelling, insults, even hands on punishments. After 7 months, I left the restaurant. The manager I had met in Italy and helped me get the job left and opened a wine bar and offered me a job, so I followed him. I was alone in the kitchen, grilling without proper ventilation. 2 months in, I landed in the hospital with a crazy bronchitis, made worse by asthma and smoking. Though the pay was better, I realized the manager wasn't the owner, he had stolen money and fled the country. I moved on to a better paying job in a new super cool Danish bar and grill with open kitchen. I started working out again in the mornings, but weekends were a different story. Sex, drugs, alcohol, and nightlife became my normal. Back in my chef days, drugs and alcohol weren't just present, they were part of the culture. That's how I first discovered them. After working like a dog in an intense environment, I needed to feel seen, to have fun, to escape. What started as a way to cope soon opened my eyes to a world operating behind closed doors. And here's the thing, either people are pretending not to see it or they truly don't know. I've seen taxis delivering drugs on demand like food orders, just a message away. It's a system, a hidden business. If it exists at that scale, it means there's some level of allowance, a structure turning a blind eye, like with alcohol sales. Drugs were everywhere in kitchens, cocaine in the morning, late at night, between shifts. I knew chefs high around the clock. And head chefs, they either joined it, ignored it, or looked the other way. It's a brutal hypocrisy in the industry. An upper secret killing people, dulling minds, and feeding a destructive cycle no one wants to talk about it. After a year, I climbed the ranks to sous chef, and that summer, I took a bank loan and got my apartment in Copenhagen. I was 23. Then I joined a catering company that a couple of Danish friends had opened. When I got in, we were four chefs and making food for 300 people. After 2 years, had grown to 2,000 customers, and in the kitchen were running 12, 15 chefs. Despite moving away from evening shifts, weekends stayed the same, partying, drinking, and repeating the cycle. Eventually, I helped open a restaurant and manage events, but something inside felt off. A road trip in the States made me reflect. I didn't want this life anymore. Then COVID hit, I had a major fallout with the catering company, and I decided to quit. Unemployment benefits gave me space to study personal training and nutrition. I then spent a year in the Tuscan countryside in Italy cooking and helping managing a family food business. Then I returned to Copenhagen where I had stayed in my apartment, and I also started a 3 years master in health coaching that was going to see me traveling back and forth to Italy almost every month. Needing a job in Copenhagen, I took a bar manager role in a wine bar. Nightlife quickly reminded me why I had to leave. When an old chef friend offered me a job in a large Danish company, breakfast, lunch, no nights, 5 days a week, good pay, big team, Danish kind of perfect job. I reluctantly agreed. It was a revelation. We had a canteen and a private restaurant for the employees. Great products were coming in the restaurant, and we had carte blanche from the executive. We could make whatever menu we wanted. Money was not an issue. Best place I've ever worked. Food is about heart, not titles. Despite years without formal chef schooling, I thrived because I grew up with cooking that came from love. That kind of like Italian grandma's love. I stayed for a couple of years in the company, and the executive became a supporter of my coaching studies. Thanks to him that I was able to travel back and forth to Italy every month. He has definitely been also one of the most important mentors for me. We started together the Mindful Chef movement, and we planned a strategic project to run inside our kitchen for the chefs. We had coaches and consultants coming over and talk about communication, breathwork, ice bath, and more science-proof techniques for reducing stress and improving personal health and the working environment. I was able to test my coaching skills and to show a new normal in the industry. I can say that it has been a process with many challenges. I had put so much focus into the project and other people, and I forgot about myself. My body broke down. It started with a simple hearing loss and turned into balance problems where I couldn't even stand. Growth in my ear, a cholesteatoma, was affecting my hearing and balance, and I almost got paralyzed in my face. I had to leave the kitchen. I thought, this is it. Stress piled up, and then surgery. I knew I couldn't keep living this way. The kitchen gave me 11, 12 unforgettable years. Lessons, joy, pain. I saw the same struggles everywhere: addiction, burnout, toxic environments. One of my most important mentors, few years ago, a seemingly happy chef, took his own life. Tragic moment for me. I realized this truth: mental health is everything. Value yourself first, or no one else will. We hide behind titles, hide our struggles, but eventually you run out of strength. As chefs, we normalize suffering, but we have a choice. I didn't know that before, and it cost me. We need to speak out. We can help each other. We are not indestructible. We don't need to be. We are just men, women, human beings. We have emotions and we deserve the best. If you are in the industry and struggling, know this: it's okay to leave and it's okay to stay, but take care of your mind and heart. Don't wait until it's too late to choose differently. And if you need to talk, I'm here. You are not alone. Thanks for watching.